computer. Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's always funny when I say good morning or good afternoon to people because we always pre-record these. We don't record them, and they all launch on Saturday evenings, and so it's like super nice and bright and sunny here. And most people will probably be watching this when it's dark. But first, I'm just going to do a little introduction. So for those people who have never watched our podcast before, I am Megan Holmes, and I am here in St. Louis, Missouri, in my shop called the Needlepoint Clubhouse. People have been asking me to mention that I'm actually STL Needlepoint on Instagram, and I try to think if I'm STL Needlepoint anyplace else. My website is STL needlepoint.com. But anyway, that's me. And together with my partner in crime, Melissa McLeod, who owns the Wool and the Floss in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, we have come together and we're doing this video podcast here on YouTube, and people have been watching. I should count how many episodes we have now. We have a pretty good amount, but we are absolutely delighted to have Kathy Rees. That's the right way for me to say it, right, Kathy?
Yes.
And go ahead and do, if you don't mind, a little introduction of yourself. So you are Kathy Rees, and where are you, and what do you call yourself? And go for it for me, would you?
Okay. Well, thank you, Megan, so much for inviting me to come on your podcast.
Yeah.
And, this is actually the first time that I've been interviewed on film, so I'm really nervous.
Oh, stop it.
And I know.
Stop
so
it.
I'm trying not to be, and
Nothing
whatever.
to be nervous about. You are way cool, and you have a huge fan following. So this is really awesome. So sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
That's okay. So I live in Pensacola, Florida, which
Nice.
is where I am. I'm coming to you straight from my living room, where I feel like I've been for the last year, along with everybody else in the pandemic.
Yes.
And I have to say that the pandemic actually has brought me into the Zoom world, because it's the way that I've stayed connected to my friends and my family during this past year. And thank God for my needlework and for the community I have through this, because otherwise I think I might be going to a different place.
It'd be crazy, right?
It'd be really, really crazy. I don't know what people do who don't have hobbies with their hands, so that's
I'll interrupt
number
you
one.
real quick. Someone just told me the other day that they read that the people who are doing best with the pandemic are those who have a hobby that they can do in their home. So I think you're exactly right. So,
well,
anyway,
and those, my customers, the people who do my stuff, have connected with me a lot this year to tell me thank you for this online class that you did. It brought me a lot of peace and contentment and serenity, and the name of the pieces that I did. And I've actually worked harder this year than
girl, same.
Same. I know what that's like, because I have an affinity towards shop owners, because I used to have one, and it's been a challenge for those of us who are working in the industry, and I think a great comfort, if you will, for people who needlepoint or knit or crochet or quilt or do anything. And so anyways, back to
I want to take one quick step back, because I did a bad job of so one of the reasons why Melissa and I were so delighted that you accepted our invitation. Oh, hi, Kitty. Is that Sam?
No, that's Boots. And
Boots, you're gonna knock down that.
I told you he was my troublemaker.
You're the troublemaker. Well, you can be on film too.
He's my troublemaker. So this is my cute boy.
Hi, Boots.
This is why his name is Boots.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
So one of the reasons we were delighted that you accepted our invitation is because I think you're the first of the counted, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, charted design artists. Is that how you would describe your business?
I call it charted needlepoint designer.
Charted needlepoint. Okay.
Yeah. So I just call myself a needle artist, just generally, but my specialty is charted designs.
And so I don't think, I mean, I did some good research. I don't think you have any painted pieces in your line, in your current business, do you?
That's correct. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So charted, counted, however people refer to, but that just basically means for those people who have not worked one of these designs before, it just means that you start with a blank canvas And in a similar way that you would start, all right, a counted cross stitch piece, you begin in the center and you work the designs counted in that way. So I guess what I'm curious about, well, I'm curious about a lot of things, but my biggest curiosity is, so did you start cross stitching or needle pointing? And can you kind of take me through your personal needlework journey?
Or how long do we have?
Oh,
I
girl,
started.
as long as you want.
So I'll give you the quick version is at 5 years old, my mother taught me to knit.
Oh,
She said that I don't remember that. She said I did such a good job that the next weekend she taught me to crochet. And
okay.
I never knitted again until I was an adult.
Okay.
So I knitted.
So let's just read between the lines, or you didn't really like it.
You know what? I think as a 5-year-old, one needle was more manageable than two.
Aha.
That's my inkling, but I don't know for
sure.
sure. So I crocheted through. This is just gonna. He's there's like a little hidey hole that he wants to go in.
Oh.
I crocheted like kind of through high school and college, and when I was in high school, my mother had a small gift shop where she sold finished cross stitch in the 70s.
Wow. Okay.
Really odd. So I have one brother and a father. So it was the four of us in the house, and we all had to contribute. And so my mother taught all of us to cross stitch, and we stitched a lot when I was in high school to produce stuff for her to sell. And that's where my cross stitch started. And I cross stitched off and on. I just cross stitched a lot for her off and on through the end of my college. And then I kind of quit, and I graduated from college. I got a job. I was busy.
Was your degree in anything artsy or?
No. I have a degree in business administration and accounting.
Perfect.
So, which has served me really well.
No kidding. Yeah.
Today. Yeah. So I worked for 10 years after I graduated from college, and my parents, I went to school in California, and my parents, I grew up in a military family, so we moved around a lot. And in 1992, my parents, they had retired from the military, and they decided to open a little mom and pop cross stitch store. And, they here in Pensacola, well, in Gulf Breeze across the bridge. And so I came to visit them maybe 6 months after they opened the store. And when I was there, I don't know really what happened, except that I loved it. Like, I didn't know what that was, but it was like I was again getting a chance to cross stitch stuff to hang on the wall for, the shop. And so I got to do whatever I wanted because anything would go on the wall. So I wasn't limited to like what's going to go in my house or how am I going to use this. I just got to create.
At this point, was it selling finished pieces still, or was it like a sample that you were doing for your mom?
No, I was doing samples for the wall. Gotcha. So my mom had moved from having a gift shop to now having a cross stitch and needlework supplies. Sure. So we sold. So I was on vacation. I visited them. I went home. I'm walking the dog one day, and I have this idea like I should move to Florida and go into business with my parents.
Awesome.
And so to make a long story short, that's what I did, which was pretty radical. I was young, I was single, I had split up with somebody and that wasn't working out. And I had not lived around my parents and my family. My brother lives 3 hours from here since I had graduated from high school at 16. Sure. So I had this kind of journey. You graduated
from high school at age 16?
I did, yeah.
Went to college at 17 or 16?
I went at 16, yeah.
Wow.
So
you're like the Doogie Howser.
No, not really. I skipped second grade. So I was like a little math kid, I designed geometrics, which is no big surprise.
That makes sense. Yep.
I always loved numbers and math, and I didn't like letters, and I loved reading, but I didn't like writing or anything that was subjective. Like I like things black and white.
Yep. So, you and Melissa would get along really well.
Yeah. So, I moved, and, I just think, like, I'm an accountant. I mean, really, I'm an accountant by trade. Like, it's in me, and I love that. I was in high school and took an accounting class and loved it. And I didn't know that that's what I didn't really want to go to college to be an accountant. I wanted to go to college to get an education and be able to get a job. And so I picked something that I thought I could get a job, which
Right,
business seemed like
right,
a good idea.
right.
So, which it was. And so I moved, and, I wrote my parents a letter and said, well, let's talk about this. And they said, yeah, that's great. And so I moved, and for 10 years, I ran the Needlepoint store, the needlework store. We sold cross stitch, needlepoint, and my father did custom framing. So it was really a true
Perfect.
little family mom and pop shop. And
Yeah.
my parents happened to be in the right place at the right time and opened the store as a long-term established store was closing across town.
Ah.
And so those people just kind of migrated over to where they were.
Mhm.
And then they were right on the path to go to Pensacola Beach, where all the tourists would go by, and had a big sign in the window, and people would talk about, husbands would come in grumbling, saying, my wife, we haven't even got to the hotel and we had to stop here.
Yeah,
So
oh,
we're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, we'll help you out.
yeah, yeah.
And so it was great. And in 2004, we had a big hurricane here, Hurricane Ivan,
Right.
and our store was destroyed, basically. I mean, it was standing, but we had big holes in the roof, and we
Water is
lost
not good.
most of our inventory. And I mean, it was a really bad time. And so my parents had been talking about retiring, and they decided we're done. And so at that point, I had to decide what I wanted to do. Like,
Yeah.
I could go back to be an accountant, I could open my own store, I could lie down and die, which is what I kind of felt like doing at the time.
That.
And so I did decide, because I had a lot of damage at my house too. So it was a really bad time.
Mhm.
And so I, bucked up, and I did open my own store in Pensacola in 2005. So 6 months after the hurricane.
So, I haven't been in the industry that long, and so might be a silly question.
No,
But
it's good.
when you opened your store in 2005, was it, needlepoint, cross stitch, knitting, all ebbs and flows. So did you kind of say, I'm going to do needlepoint, I'm going to do cross stitch, I'm going to do a little, you know how to crochet. So you were kind of starting from scratch. So
I was, but I was also like reopening
kind of what
an
you,
established store. And, because of space, we always decided that the counted needle, or not even counted, but the needle and either needlepoint canvas or some kind of ground cloth, whether it be linen, needlepoint canvas, Aida cloth, whatever.
Mhm.
So we chose specifically not to get into yarn when the knitting thing was huge.
Yep.
There was a yarn shop down the road,
Mhm.
and really my mom probably drove that more back when we had the store together, because she didn't want to help people knit and crochet because it wasn't her.
Harder.
It's harder. Yeah, it wasn't her expertise.
Right.
So, like, we decided within needlepoint and cross stitch, we had a huge range of designs, styles.
Yep.
We sold a little bit of Hardinger, a little bit like a lot of different embroidery types, but we specifically chose not to do
So
yarn.
what I was trying to get to is what at the time were the big thread lines. So were not, I don't want to say just, but were you doing the base like DMC or Anchor flosses? Were you doing some over dyes? Like what was the kind of the thing in 2005?
Oh, in 2005, gosh, we were already doing over dyes big time.
So would it have been Dinky dyes back then, or Colorworks, or
We were doing Karen
Flex?
Collection.
Yeah,
Karen Collection was,
the water.
Weeks Dye Works, Gentle Art, because cross
Okay.
stitch, you've got to have those. I pretty much carried almost all of the thread lines.
And
Maybe
was
not
it,
the entire lines, but
sure, was it mostly the cotton overdyes, or were there some silks or some
no, lots
specials?
of silk. I love silk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we all do, girl.
Yeah.
Good taste.
Like, yeah. So I really, I like texture. I mean, I designed geometrics. So, we sold a lot of Rainbow Gallery threads. I still use a lot of Rainbow Gallery threads because of the variety of the texture.
So, okay, I took you down a different road. I'm going to take you right back. So we're back on the store. We decided to do the store 2005. Your store's rolling along. And at what point did you begin to kind of grow your design business?
So what happened was I was teaching, which I had been teaching
sure.
needlepoint for, since the 90s. I had been, and I had never needlepointed before I came to work for the store. So we actually had an employee that taught me to do basket weave so that I could help people, which is kind of funny, it's like,
Yes.
it's really hard, so like I learned enough so that I could show. And so, but then I kind of got really interested in it. I did a counted chart and like fell in love with doing different stitches and using different types of threads, especially those overdyes.
So who, like, what
did I do?
Whose designs were you working before you, like the counted needlepoint?
So this leads right into my designing, because I did the very first charted work I did was Jenny Morrow, which is an old, she's long past. This is the days before the internet.
Well,
before
sure, yeah.
everybody had websites,
right,
I mean,
right. Or before you could
was
Google counted chart designers.
You couldn't go, so it was kind of like, well, where did we find these? And so there wasn't a lot. There was Jean Hilton, which I did some of her stuff, but I had a hard time with her stuff because her charts were handwritten.
Oh, wow.
Like they were hand drawn. I don't know how she did it. I could have never done that because I do like my technology, but so I had started doing charted. I was teaching charted. I was doing alternate colorways for guilds. We had several local guilds and they would do classes and they would all want to do different colors. And I had always helped people, choose colors for their painted canvases, choose alternate colorways, switch things up, edit. So I had always kind of done that. And then when I opened my own store, I was still teaching and I wanted like a little basic needlepoint, how to, beginner class. And so I quote unquote designed these round ornaments, which just were one stitch, a Karen watercolor, and a metallic. Perfect. And I started an ornament of the month club. And so people came every month and did their little ornament, and it was sweet and it was great. And, it was a chart that I didn't have to buy from somebody else.
Right. That's pure, that's pure profit right there. That's brilliant. Yeah.
It was, and I could make it really inexpensive because I wanted people to have an opportunity to try it, to see if they liked it without investing a lot of time or money.
Right.
And so I did that. And then I had a class that I was teaching that was a year-long quote unquote mystery, where they would come every month and they would get one pattern and they would do a part, and then they would come back the next month and get another part.
All on one canvas, right? So
all
you're
on one
starting
canvas.
One area with one thread and one.
And so that was, I was using somebody else's patterns, which is fine.
Sure.
But some months I wasn't sure they were going to get there on time, because of, how that is. And so my students actually said to me, why don't you design one of these? And I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like, I own a shop. I don't have time to design something. And I'm not creative. So they said, come on, we'll take your class. And I said, okay. So I had, I had great customers.
So, and so were you doing, because you said you learned basket weave. So then were you teaching yourself the decorative stitches, and then kind of as you went along, kind of just learning them and throwing them into your designs and saying, well, those two look cool together?
Well, I got Joe Christensen's The Needlepoint book.
Sure.
Which we sold to people all the time. I still tell people, like, it's still the book that I go to for accurate, diagrams. And so I read that book, I didn't just look at the diagrams in the back when I wanted to
Right.
know how to do something. I actually read all the chapters in the front, which tell you why basket weave is done the way it is, why continental sometimes is not the best stitch. So I taught myself those basic things. And then when I had opportunities to take classes from national teachers through our local guilds, I did that.
Good for you.
And, we went to market, trade shows every year, and we would take classes. So we were always like wanting to learn new things so that we could pass it on to our stitching community.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I created a mystery design for my, 12, my little class of 12 ladies. And, at that time, I had no clue that that was the beginning of what I do today.
Right.
Where, I actually earn a living from designing and teaching, and this is all I do. I don't even have a brick and mortar store anymore. So, that first little thing, and then somebody said, and I'm still not a designer, I'm just creating a piece for my class. And somebody asked me, are you going to publish that? And I said, well, no, like, why would I do that? They're like, we want to buy it. I'm like, okay. So I really kind of it wasn't my idea. It just kind of happened organically. And then
I want to, what's making my heart sing about this story is this is like women supporting women and encouraging women. I mean, I hate to say that because there may have been some men in your class, but let's just say a community coming, kind of rallying around a person that they see. And I feel a lot of that from my own experience owning this shop. Like, this community is so amazing and it's just so supportive. And it's cool to hear you really kind of like parse out this story, which basically is your parents being supportive of what you were doing, your students being supportive. I love that. So sorry, I'm just here. I'm reading between the lines, but it's a very
it's true. Even, when I opened the store, my parents retired. Like, I moved here in 1993 to be closer to my family.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was pretty close. We worked together every day, which has its own challenges. But then when they retired, they moved to North Carolina. And so then I was like, well, yeah, I have my friends and stuff, but my family just moved away. And so when I opened the store, we had a stitching night once a week. We had regular classes. We did events where we, people came and potlucked and we stitched till midnight, once or twice every 3 months. And so I really created or, helped create this needlepoint community, this needle community, which women, I mean, they were good friends. They're still good friends today. And that is something that a lot of people don't have in their lives. And so,
well, I was just going to say, being successful in life and having support of family and friends is not lost on me.
I mean, critical.
It's the only way that, we get anywhere is to have the support of a network, and it's awesome. So
it's true.
So
and it's, stitching is a really solitary sport.
It can be,
it can be. It doesn't have to be, but it is for many people. And I think that's why all of these stitching podcasts and social media and everything has been so important to people, because it connects people.
Right.
And whenever you get to share something that you love with somebody who loves it as much as you do, it's like, oh, so exciting.
Isn't it great? So, yeah, it's really great. Yeah. So you start with the just probably a couple of designs. Did you decide then at that point, like, okay, I'll sell this now in my store, the mystery class, and then you kind of just, it's sort of just.
I just kind of said, well, let me see. I had a student. I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to find time to do this, but I want to design something. And what really happened, that very first charted needlepoint that I did, I loved it. It was little squares. Every time I finished a little square, there was this sense of, so much fun, and I loved it. And I kept chasing that feeling of, oh my God, this is so much fun. I can't wait to sit down and do this, instead of, oh my God, I got to finish this border. It's so boring. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is really beautiful, but making it is not the most fun.
It's much fun. Yes.
And so I wanted to design pieces that I would want to stitch.
Sure.
So it really wasn't about producing something to hang on the wall or be a pillow or whatever. It was more about, for
Process.
me, the process.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you don't enjoy the process of stitching, you won't do it. I mean, there's lots of people that's just like, it's way too boring.
Well,
So
and it's interesting because I am really at a point in my life when I have just a lot of static up here. So I really just kind of need a mindless, meditative,
right.
basket weave, kind of thing,
Yes.
or kind of. I mean, frankly, people are probably going to kill me when I say this, but I say needlepoint is kind of color by number, right? Like it's there for you, painted needlepoint, and that's where I'm at in my life right now. But a lot of people, and it sounds like you needed it, and a lot of people need this kind of mental challenge a little bit. And I think the charted pieces are way more of a challenge. Counting, keeping track, where are you going, looking at going from. And Melissa always says she does at least one counted piece a year because she thinks it helps the other side of your brain with the counting and it's a little harder and it's a little more challenging. And I need to get on that track, but I have enough challenge right now in my life with two little kids and et cetera. But so I think it's really interesting to hear you say that from the chart, the way the charted piece kind of works for you and kind of fulfills you. It's just a little different, I think. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a fair overstatement, but
It's fair, but the people who mostly do charted will say, oh, that painted canvas is too hard because I have to decide on this like color curve line, like what am I going to do? So everything has its challenge, if you
that's
will.
true.
For me to sit down with a chart, like when I'm designing my own, it's mental work and there's a certain challenge to it. But if I was doing somebody else's work, which I hardly ever do anymore, just for lack of time, and I have to protect my arm from too much repetitive stuff,
Yep.
which has become an issue. And so if I'm just doing somebody else's and I sit down, especially like one of my pieces, like I'm only going to work on a piece this big, and there's a chart here that tells me where to put the needle, it's a little count by number. It's the same kind of thing,
That's true.
but
That's
there
true.
there's something about starting with blank canvas and seeing the pattern and the design and the colors happen and
Come to life.
emerge. There's a certain magic to it.
So that take brings me to I mean, I need to understand your process because to me, I'm thinking.
I need to understand it.
Well, at least you're being honest. I can kind of see somebody saying like, I want to take my artwork that I've sketched and drawn and translate that to needlepoint, or, there's different processes with painted canvas too. But so
Right.
do you start with thread? Do you start with like an idea, kind of, can you give us
I can try.
any way that you're.
It depends. I definitely have more of a process now than I did when I first started. When I first started, it was kind of like, let's see what happens if I do this and this. And so over time, it'd be like, oh, okay, that's what that looks like. And so there's a lot of experimentation, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And now I have a general idea of like what a Scotch stitch looks like and what happens if I change it up this way, this way, this way, this way. And
Vertical,
horizontal, if I work it diagonal, if I do it in overdyes, there's so many different things that you can do with needlepoint. So while it's the same thing over and over, it's still different all the time. Like I always said, I have the attention span of a gnat. So like, I'm just like, that's why being a shop owner was good, because every day was different. You never know what's going to happen.
It's the same for
and
me.
so
like I'm thinking, so I pulled this out because it's very timely. So
right.
you've got different categories of designs. This is part of what I guess is the holiday series. So
Right.
Did you say to yourself, I need to have a St. Patrick's Day design? What elements of St. Patrick's Day, like what elements of St. Patrick's Day come into this? And should I have these little designs or what? I guess I'm just trying to think of like, how does it start?
Well, and I will tell you that the Holiday Delight series is really different than all of my other work, because there are actual motifs that look like something on there, which I have, like, that's not anywhere in any of my other designs. My designs are all geometric, kind of abstract, if anything, they're kind of based on some quilts, which, you know,
Yes.
quilts everywhere. Cause
The
like
lollipop.
that's
and-
my
Mhm.
personal hobby and it's like, I protect it. It's sacred. I don't help anybody unless I want to. I don't write patterns. I don't have to keep track of anything. It's just pure joy. But I don't love the process of it as much as I love picking out the fabrics and the colors and the design.
Gotcha.
So my needlepoint is like being able to create something that just is fun. And but when I did this Holiday Delight series, when I decided to do that, it was more originally about color. So
Okay.
the first one I did was just a geometric, like log cabin type quilt design, which I can show you is this. Like this doesn't even look like that series because it's just, there's a star in it, which is the only thing that's identifiable, which a lot of my early designs and still a lot of my designs have stars in them. I love stars. I always have. I was born in Texas.
All right.
Never lived there. My mom is from Texas. So I did this little design and it sat for a few years and I was like, I really want to get back to that Holiday Delight series, but I want something that's not so the same thing over and over. And so I had this idea in my head. And so of course the first holiday I was going to start with was Christmas because it's a big seller. Like I kind of know what sells and that's still important to me. And so I drew an outline, which is almost always the way I start. I start usually with a big pile of thread and then I start picking stitches and start stitching. I'll draw an outline on the canvas first and then I just start. And sometimes I'll design stuff on the computer, just little pieces.
So you're saying like this is kind
That's
of a
the
starting
outline.
point for you, kind of the grid. I get.
Yeah, and so like, you know, I thought, okay, and when I design, I like to still challenge myself. Like I don't like to do the same thing over and over. So this Holiday Delight series, I'm going to do 3 motifs. So Christmas was really easy. Like I did a tree, a Christmas tree. Oh no,
Trying to
I don't
picture the
remember what
Christmas
I
one.
did.
Is there a present on it maybe or no?
I think there, oh my God, how embarrassing. It was a long time ago.
Well, and there's
anyways,
you have a lot of designs. It's okay.
I have a lot of designs. Yeah. So anyways, there's going to be 3 motifs and, you know, so if we go to St. Patrick's Day, I think it was like number 6 or number 5. There's always going to be 3 motifs. So like in a framework, I will like kind of make some rules and I will do this almost in any design. Like there's these kind of guidelines I give myself so that I'm not like all over the place, which is my normal personality. So then like having to figure out like what stitches do I use to, and I can't draw. So like, how am I going to create these things?
With needle and thread, kind of trial and error on the canvas. Is that sort of where you're going?
And then combine. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. You know, they were all different. It depended what they were. You know, I did Christmas, then I did Halloween. Halloween, I had, what did I do? Hats. I did hats.
The witches' hats, yes.
And the witches' hats, yeah.
And the bunnies.
That was really fun.
For Easter, yeah.
Yeah, and then Easter, you know, I did a bunny rabbit, which was really fun because I made him a little fluffy tail. And so that has been a really fun series for me. And then I kind of ran out of holidays and people were like, what are you going to do next? What holiday are you going to do next? I'm like, well, what other holidays are there? You know, because I mean, I went all the way through the year and I'm like, you know, somebody's like Labor Day. I'm like, no, I'm not doing Labor Day. So I did do last year. I did a graduation and a birthday.
Those are cute, really cute.
They're down
so
there
it
somewhere.
Sounds to me like these are not your biggest sellers. So what
they actually are.
Are they? Okay.
They have, yeah, I sell Holiday Delights. Like I've got some to ship out today. Like I sell them. Like I would have never imagined that these little cute, fun, easy, simple 6x6 designs.
We sell them a ton in our shop. In fact,
Yeah.
this is the only one I had left, and I intended to place an order with you before we talked, and I didn't get to it, but I promise I will.
Bet you will. Yeah.
But you know what I have to say as a shop owner, this is brilliant because I've got the picture on the front, and you know this because you were a shop owner. I've
Right.
got the thread list on the back,
Mhm.
and this part just makes my heart sing. You do a little
Yes.
plug for local needlepoint shops. Please support your
Yes.
local needlepoint shop. I thank you for doing that. That's really,
Yeah.
that's really, really.
Everybody should support their local needlework shop. I had a local needlepoint shop, and the only reason I closed it was I wanted to do this more.
Yeah,
And
I understand that.
you know, I like after I closed my store, I didn't understand really how exhausted I was trying to do both. Run a store full time and have a design business full time. And of course, I'm busier now than I was then with my design business, but I was saying no to opportunities I really wanted to say yes to. And, you know, today I have a better life, I have better balance, and am really grateful for the opportunities that I have because of the needle and thread.
So, Holiday Delights are a big seller. They're a big seller for us. What is your #1 best seller?
So I don't always have this set up in my living room.
Sure.
But this is called Color Waves.
Color Waves. And that is that part, is there a Color Delights? I'm trying to remember the.
I have a Color Delights series.
Right.
So this is Color Waves. And
so how are those 1-inch samplers?
They are 1-inch squares, including the white. So each little square that has color in it is 16 threads by 16 threads.
Very cool.
And you can see, let's see if I can see like this square right here has like a blue and because, you know, I went through this phase where I wanted to show that you could actually create curves on canvas, which is a challenge, as you know. So
it is, but it's all about
stitch selection and threads and what you put next to each other.
Right.
So
that's color. So I'm sorry, that's called Color Waves.
It's called Color Waves, and it is stitched with 6 watercolors, 7 colors of pearl cotton, and then a bunch of rainbow gallery threads.
Nice.
And in this piece, I used certain sections of the watercolors because I used 6 watercolors I like the watercolors that have lots of different colors within the same skein.
Yes, yes.
And so, you know, there's an art to using those threads together successfully. And when I first started designing, one of the other pieces that I stitched that was somebody else's design had 10 different colors of watercolors.
Wow.
And our guild wanted to do it, and they, of course, you know, they were like, we want to do different colorways. Will you create them for us? And so I did, and it was really fun. And so a lot of my early designs use all watercolors because I think that's really fun.
Lois Karen was loving you at that point.
Yeah,
she's the owner of the Karen collection. For those,
I have a nice relationship, you know. So, when the new watercolors come, like that to me is like candy. Like, oh, I can't wait to get them. In fact, she hasn't put any out in a long time. I should talk to her. But,
she's just as busy as the rest of us this year. She probably doesn't have.
We all of us in the business are super busy right now, and when the world returns to normal, I might get a vacation.
So I always love to ask, what's your worst seller?
Oh, that very first mystery I did. It's like it's before I really knew what I was doing or whatever, and the design isn't that bad because in the alternate colorways it looks pretty good, but my original color way I used gold,
lots of gold, huh?
A background color, and
it doesn't make your heart sing anymore.
Like, I didn't go to Florida State. I went to San Diego State, California State School.
Right.
You went to Florida State, it's those colors.
Okay. Maroon and gold.
Not like maroon and gold, yeah.
Yep.
And so that is it's called Symmetry, and it's not It's not my favorite. So,
Well, people will check it out now. You never know. You might sell one.
well, if you check it out, get a different colorway. Don't do my
The
original.
original.
So,
What about, what's your favorite one that you have in your line? Do you have a favorite? It's kind of like asking to pick a favorite child.
yeah, it's usually like what I just finished.
Okay.
So
Because it's on your mind and on your heart.
because it's
Yeah.
on my mind, and sometimes it's like, I'm excited to introduce it to the world and see, are people gonna like it?
Uh-huh.
Are they gonna embrace it? Or what's gonna happen with it? And then, like right now, I happen to be in between projects, which is an odd place to be, where I don't have anything on the frame.
What? That's what I was just going to ask you. What's in the
I
works?
know. Well, I have designs I have been contracted to teach at EGA, or not EGA, at A&G next year in
Okay.
2022, and I have
Okay.
to create them. So that's what's up next. And
So when you teach at A&G, it's a brand new project, hot off the press, or not always?
not always, but most of the time. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
the last couple of years, I have submitted like a design idea / drawing, and they've accepted it. And so then the pressure is on to get that done
I hear
by
you.
this year's seminar, because it has to be shown for next year.
Right.
So,
It's kind of like buying for retail. You're at like Valentine's Day, you're already thinking about Christmas
right.
for that year.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I totally
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
And then I think when we talked, and maybe I'm not supposed to bring this up, but you had a couple things you were going to release coming up, or is that a
Yes,
secret?
I just blogged about this yesterday
Okay.
as we're recording this, and am sending something out to the shops today, or sometime this weekend. And so last year during the pandemic, my like best-selling or most popular teaching design class is called Serenity.
Mm-hmm.
And so
We all need a lot of that.
I have a trio of designs called Serenity, Harmony, and Tranquility.
Mm-hmm.
Call it my peace trilogy. I taught it online last year. Many people did it. I've taught it like a ton. And I was really jealous of people getting to have that stitching experience. While I was busy sending it out and drawing canvases and creating something new, or just, I didn't even have time to stitch. I was just like shipping stuff constantly to everybody. And so I pulled a bunch of threads out and said, I'm going to have that stitching journey too once I finished with the class. And so I created a bigger design that is similar to those pieces, and I called it my COVID contentment project because I stitched it. So I took the COVID off, and so I know you're like, it's like, here's a little tiny bit of it, but this is called contentment.
Oh, that's so beautiful. The pastels.
Yes. My one of my friends that has watched me stitch it these last few months calls it my Easter project.
Well,
because it's based on I used a Gloriana silk called Tulip Festival to pull all the colors.
You did? I love that. And I look at that all the time and I think,
it's a beautiful thread.
Oh, it's so good.
It's a great thread because it has all the colors in it. It has blues, it has yellows, it has greens, it has purples, it has pinks. It's got the whole rainbow.
I'm so glad that there are people like you out there, because there are these threads that just don't always work on painted canvas, but they're so good. And so it's awesome to have these charted designs to try those threads out. Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Well, and I always tell people who do painted canvas, like, do some charted stuff, because then you have a sample of what these threads and what stitches look like.
Yep.
And so like when I teach, I will often say, if you do painted canvas, this is a really good stitch for a roof, or this is a really good stitch for grass or water or whatever. So even though I haven't done a ton of painted canvas myself, although it's like, I was going to show you, where's my little needlepoint cushion? I don't know.
Maybe the cats ran off with it.
I don't know.
You had one over.
I was going to show you my very first little needlepoint, but well, it's not my design. It's like somebody else's. It's just a little basket weave, because I did love basket weave.
You'll come up with it, and when you find it, you'll take a picture. You'll take a picture and text it to me, and we'll use that for the promo for this. How about that? So then everyone will be able to see it.
It's not my design. So this is, okay, so I'll show you one thing. This is all watercolors. This is called Summer Logs. And this little jewel, it's like a log cabin design.
And the fringe on that pillow is rocking.
This is some fringe. My mother did finishing when we had the store, and she had this fringe left over from a customer's pillow, and she put it on this, and it is the thing that everybody loves. And
so
it really, it looks like some kind of knitting yarn, but it actually was a trim.
So tell me really quickly as I'm looking at this, because one thing I wanted to just mention is that the difference I would say, and correct me because you're the expert, the difference I would say between like a charted piece of needlepoint and cross stitch is that for the most part, needlepoint, we want to fill most of the canvas because it's not pretty. And so are the borders of what you just held up, the white area, it's hard for me to really see. Is that just 10? Oh no, there's stitches in that too. I can see the texture when you move it in. So that is all filled, but it's not just 10 stitches.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is, there's actually like, I think 4 or 5 different colors of watercolors.
Oh, wow.
So it's not all the same.
It's hard for us to see, but maybe we'll take a photo of that too and show that, because I think that's something people always say, like, what's the difference, you know? And the ground fabric, like you said, is the difference, but the ground fabric in cross stitch for the most part is pretty. It's softer. It's a little, you know, more, I don't know, pretty. And it's not filled in. And so behind you, so those are, looks like maybe
those are linen samplers. They're actually done on 18 count, so they're big. And this is actually all watercolors, believe it or not. Like, I didn't even think about the fact that, these 2 samplers are, they were samples in our store, and they were ones that I kept and brought home when I closed.
And I happen to have
store.
a watercolor here because I was wondering if you were going to bring it up, but watercolors has 3
ply.
3 ply, and so 1 ply works great on 18 count.
Right.
And then so then you can
and that 1 ply is like just a hair thicker than size 5 pearl cotton.
Yes.
And so it actually the coverage is a little bit better. So that you know, you can do basket weave with that, but you know, you might get some stripes or whatever. But when you do some specialty stitches, depending on where you're using it, like a green like that is great for grass.
Yep.
In the right stitch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. And when you and I talked earlier, I thought this was an interesting comment that you made that I hadn't really thought about before, but you said that watercolors has a texture like no other thread.
That is true.
And I think that was just a cool thing. And it kind of stuck with me when we did some little pre-conversation. And I think you're right. And I hadn't really thought about it. So if people haven't ever tried this, I guess this is a little plug for the Karen collection. But this is a cool thread. We carry it. And I honestly, when I first bought the shop, I'm like, what is this? I don't get it. Cause I was so like such a purist, a tent stitch. And I thought, I can't use this on my basket weave. And it is a hard basket weave thread to use, but anyway, you're right, it's very cool.
But that thread though, that particular color, I think that's jade. Is that jade?
God, you're amazing.
I really like watercolors. Is my, I mean, I love all of the threads, but watercolors is probably, if I had to only choose one watercolor, it would be that. I mean, only one overdyed, it would be watercolors. You know, it's my first love. It's my go-to. It's, you know, Contentment doesn't use it, but most of my designs, not most, a lot of my designs have it. And I have a number of designs that are 100% watercolors. So
this is another,
this is my little Halloween boo logs.
Oh yes, we've finished that several times. That's a darling piece.
Yeah, so I have, you know, I have this seasonal log series. So summer, autumn, winter, spring. And so since it's spring, you think I'd be more notes. Oh, it fell down.
The kitties have taken everything away.
Yeah, she's over there sleeping now, but she was all over here. So I like to do things in series because it's kind of fun and you get to use all the colors. I haven't talked a lot about color, but I'm pretty known for my work with color, and I studied it a lot, and I have I didn't know that everybody doesn't understand color. So
it's
that's
amazing.
Like, that's a whole nother podcast
And that's not
on
something that's
color.
teachable necessarily. That's either something you see or you don't, I think. And
Well,
maybe you can learn, but
yeah, I do a lecture on color where I talk about how most people know more about color than they think they do.
oh, okay.
And so there's if a lot of color is just about noticing things around you, and everything in color, if you go outside and you look at nature, you can learn a lot if you just pay attention. So
I love
I
that.
will leave it there because I do lectures on
I
color.
love that. I would love to hear more about that. I'm very interested in color, and I had no idea that you were kind of the color guru.
Well, I
Well,
don't know if I'm a
Kathy,
color guru, but I understand color and I've studied it a lot. And
well, it's
I
pretty
have a
clear.
whole series called Colored Lights,
It's
which
pretty
are
clear in that
study
piece
of
behind
color.
you there is, I
Yeah,
mean, that's an amazing study in color there. That is very cool. I love
yeah.
that. So, well, this has been super fun. Is there anything that you didn't have a chance to tell us about that you would like to share? I think we covered most of what I had some
Covered
notes
a
on.
lot. Yeah. I think I answered your questions.
You did a great job. This has
Thank
been a
you.
really great, hopefully either time spent with Kathy for those who know you really well. And I think it's also a great introduction for those people who maybe haven't worked in charted, who are working more in painted pieces. So we carry your patterns. A lot of needlepoint shops do cross stitch. I'm sure cross stitch shops too.
Yeah, a lot of cross stitch shops do too. I did my first wholesale trade show at Nashville, which is kind of more of a cross stitch show in
I
2010.
saw you there. Oh, 2010. Okay.
Yeah, 2010. That's how long I've been exhibiting. That was the first year I exhibited after I felt like I had enough designs to kind of fill a room. And now, 12 years later, I take a small portion of what I have because I could fill, 10 rooms because I've been pretty prolific. But
That's awesome. Well, you should be really
yeah.
proud of your career. When I think of charted pieces, you and a couple others names
Oh,
rise
thank
to the
you.
top for me. So,
Yeah.
but this has been awesome. I think we'd better probably cap this off, but I could sit and talk to you all day. You're a delight and a real
Thank you.
thinker, and I just love it. So thank you for being a part of our Needlepoint community. Thank you for agreeing to do this and letting us
Sure.
learn a little more about you. And for those who have not watched our podcast before, please hit subscribe. Clicking the subscribe button on YouTube helps for us to continue to get the word out about our podcast and about different awesome people like Kathy. So thanks, Kathy. We
Thank
will
you, Megan.
hopefully see you again sometime soon in person. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Be so awesome.
I know.
My next trip is I'm supposed to go to Austin in June and then supposed to come to Kansas City for A&G seminar
Call
in
me.
August.
You can come over and pop over and see me.
I would love it. I cannot wait to get into a shop. I haven't been in a shop in over a year.
No, I know.
Awful.
It's tough. So,
yeah.
All right, girl. Well, keep on keeping
Thank
on.
you so
We'll
much.
talk to you soon. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.